you looking for a different level of truth about your challenges and struggles? Then be a part of the Yes and podcast, hosted by empowerment strategist and trauma specialist Jennifer Whitacre. Every Wednesday, we challenge conventional thinking on topics like trauma, healing, and so much more. Learn life lessons and great nuggets of wisdom from guests who've moved through their pain and suffering to discover a new purpose in life. Now, here's your host, Jennifer Whitacre.
Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer Whitacre, and you are watching or listening to another episode of Yes and. And if you're listening or watching, please subscribe, please share. I'm really excited about today's guest, and I hope you will share her with the world. Today, I have Laura Di Franco on. Laura is a repeat guest. She's been here in the past, and Laura has over 2 decades of experience in physical therapy. She's a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, and she has 6 published books. Laura has dedicated her life to the betterment of others. And what I love about Laura is her passion about the work that she does. You can just hear it come through her voice that she's so excited about writing and about physical therapy and about Taekwondo. And today, Laura and I are going to have a conversation about enthusiasm and why that's important. And I'd like to bring Laura on. Laura, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. This topic turns me on.
Yes. Yes. And it's such a tricky thing. It really is. Enthusiasm it can be, as much as we like to be enthusiastic, it's so easy to shut that down, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I think we were actually taught to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
From a very early age, right? So, don't be too loud, shush. I guess I'm thinking of times where you were told that you were boasting or bragging or being too much or too loud or too whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that was
just humble brag.
Yeah, but that was like little kid enthusiasm,
Mm-hmm.
right? That was just like unapologetic being yourself. To have that shut down so early on, you get
Mm-hmm.
taught that that's it. You have to be somebody different.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that I've really struggled with this enthusiasm a lot in my life, and I can see from everything I've learned about developmental and intergenerational trauma, I can see where my roots go. They go really far back into early childhood, even issues with the family lineage where it's been shut down. So I can see how that's been passed down. And I'm curious what some of your experiences are with enthusiasm and where maybe it's been shut down in your life.
Well, I mean, not only childhood moments with maybe family who couldn't tolerate the, the literal activity and noise of kids, but then moving on to school and having to sit quietly for however long and not express yourself, unless of course you were raising your hand to answer a question. And then even moving on to higher education, where again, it's just a lot of rules about how you're supposed to be. And so you learn certain things about how you're supposed to be. And then when you are in the world as an adult, feeling whatever you're feeling inside, whatever you're enthusiastic or excited about, sometimes being around other people, even as an adult, I had it shut down because of course those other adults were probably conditioned in the same ways, mm-hmm. right? And you can really feel it. Today I can feel when I'm around somebody who can't tolerate it. Mm-hmm. I can feel their feelings in terms of not being able to handle the amount of energy, that moves through me and my unapologetic expression of it. Because mm-hmm. I feel like that's been part of my healing journey, is to set her free again.
Yeah. And I'm curious, how do you handle those moments when you become aware that you're in the presence of somebody who just can't handle your enthusiasm?
Well, depending on who it is, you're honoring their process too. You're just meeting them where they are. And that's important. I think it's an important awareness to have. And it also depends on, again, on who you're with and how much that relationship matters to you in terms of the time and energy and effort that you're going to put into the interaction, no matter what it is and how it's going down, right? But if I notice that in somebody, honestly, I think the best way to deal for me is to call it out immediately. It's like, if I can just have a conversation about it and put it out there in front of the person, then everything relaxes and even that person relaxes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been my first go-to. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm just being my normal crazy self right now, aren't I? And sometimes I'll just joke with people. I'm like, I know I can be too much sometimes, and I'd much rather go at it with humor and more enthusiasm.
Yeah. Well, in the trauma world, there's a saying that says, "Name it to tame it."
Yeah.
And so, and it's almost like that on the flip side, because we say that about things that make us uncomfortable, that, like the trauma, like name the trauma, and it can tame how it shows up in the moment or how it manifests in the moment.
Mm.
And so name it to tame it. And it's almost the same thing on the flip side with those emotions that feel really, really good inside of us. Sometimes if you name it up front, like, hey, I am really excited, I am really passionate, I am really enthusiastic about this, and, just kind of forewarning people. I guess I don't think I do that in my life. So I might have to try that approach and see if that helps. I usually just blah and get enthusiastic and excited. And then I've had so many times in life where my feelings have been hurt in the past, and it's because it's not so much because of other people, it's because I allowed the other people to shut down my enthusiasm. Like I shut it down in reaction to another person, rather than standing up for myself and letting it just be.
Yeah, I resonate with that quite a bit. There have been so many times in my life where it's easy to look back, right, on these moments and, you did that back then. But I was helping them to be comfortable rather than really prioritizing my own soul sometimes, and making the choice to shut it down because of that uncomfortable feeling, rather than just allowing the expression and practicing the awareness with the expression, which I think is a way healthier way to go. I certainly enjoy that process more than shutting everything down and really not honoring that. Some people, I mentioned earlier, I feel like some people can't tolerate it, but that doesn't mean that I can't still be myself. Right. So I always feel like when somebody can't tolerate it, sometimes I feel sorry for them. And of course, you feel like, oh, I want you to feel as much as enthusiasm as I do about life and about this and about that. But that's not really the reality of things, is it?
Right. It's not. It's not.
Right. So it always comes back to the awareness for me in all of those moments.
Yeah. And I'm curious, have you ever had a time in your life when you haven't been able to tolerate somebody else's enthusiasm?
I love having the mirror put up in my face, because when somebody has that amount of energy, I'm having that reflected to me. And some moments I will feel that and go, whoa, okay, that's how it's like to be with me. So I'll recognize it. And I'm telling you, it's not always comfortable. So there are really, really great moments when I can understand how that is for other people, of course, right? I hate to say to you, though, that then it makes me want to tone it down. Because then we're in this vicious cycle again of you trying to tweak yourself for somebody else's comfort. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I think that's a great way to put it, because that is what is instilled in all of us in Western culture, is to tweak something about who we are or what we're doing or what we're saying or how we're feeling in the moment for the sake of somebody else's comfort. And we're not taught to honor ourselves. So everything in Western culture is about that external locus of control. I'm responsible for somebody else's feelings. I'm responsible for, how, whether or not somebody else gets offended or triggered. And that is so unhealthy because it puts the burden on each one of us for everybody else's emotions and everybody else's well-being. And I really think that starts in the home, because in my house, it absolutely did. As a young child, I was responsible for my parents' feelings. I could do something as a 2-year-old that would just like ruin my dad's whole day. And like he would go into a rage and he'd be rageful for the whole day or the whole weekend. So at that, from a very young age, it was heaped on my shoulders that if I did or said the wrong thing, there was going to be hell to pay for it. And so somehow I had to pretend, because it was all pretend, that I knew how to mind read or like anticipate what my mom or my dad or sister or whoever was going to do next in order to prevent myself from having to go through getting yelled at or whatever. Right. And that's a pattern that, when it happens at a young age, we carry it through our whole lives because it's part of our implicit mind. We don't even have explicit memory at that point in time. So it's all in the subconscious.
Yeah, and it's complicated is what you're making me think. And so sometimes
Yes.
It's, for me, the simple answer is just to stop and feel.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Somebody actually asked me a while back, how do you have so much energy? And my answer nowadays is, well, about 4 years ago or so, I started to prioritize what we're talking about today. I started to prioritize my own joy and enthusiasm as that comes first. Mm-hmm. And not because I didn't want to take care of other people. I mean, I chose a healing profession. So that is, why I'm here, to help other people. But first, if I can't help myself and really feel that, then how can I help anyone else feel it, right? So this is like typical, we need to be able to do that work so that we can help somebody else along their journey and guide them. But that was really it. When you start to feel the connection to your physical and mental health, that prioritizing that joy, that is a great moment. I'll just say that for now.
Yes. And I love that you say that, your enthusiasm gives you so much energy. Mm-hmm. And I look at our chakras. I'm going to shift just a little bit, but I swear to God, it relates. So give me just a minute here. I see our chakras a little bit different than just like little chakras that spin. I see them more as power centers. So if you're aligned with Caroline Mace's work, that's how I see our chakra system, is more how she describes it in power centers. So I see it like an hourglass shape, rather than just like little dots that go down the front of us. And so our lower 3 chakras are all about our human nature, our animal nature. Our upper 3 chakras are all about our spiritual nature, and messages from the soul rather than messages from, our human existence. And the heart chakra I see as very narrow. So when people talk about the eye of the needle, I see the heart chakra as the eye of the needle. And it's a challenge to get that eye of the needle, like to get the 2 energies to mix. So it's really common to get, like a lot of that grounding energy in our lower power centers. And if you think of it as a battery, if we're always in our lower 3 power centers, our battery is about half full. And we have to get through that eye of the needle to be able to access this information. And if you think about the Cherokee proverb of the 2 wolves inside of us, the one wolf is about anger and rage and greed and, all these emotions that are really, really uncomfortable in the body, depression and sadness, the emotions that weight us down, intolerance and judgment. Those are the emotions that drain and deplete our battery, and they keep us in those lower 3 power centers. And they keep us out of the upper power centers. Well, the upper power centers are the other wolf. That what gets us there are things like joy and enthusiasm and ecstasy and euphoria and, hope and gratitude and appreciation and forgiveness. Those are all upper power center emotions. And that's what really fills our battery. And the more full our battery is, the more that just exudes out of us. And enthusiasm is up here. So a lot of times I feel like people who are stuck in what I call the survival brain get stuck in those lower power centers. And I feel like the intolerance is almost like an envy or a jealousy. Like, I can't be where you are, so I want to drag you back down to where I am. And I also think that is subconscious. I don't think people think to themselves consciously, not the average person. I'm sure that there are a few, but I don't think the average person says, oh, Laura is just too much today. I got to do something to knock her off her pedestal. I don't think it's a conscious awareness. I think it's something that we just subconsciously do without awareness. And once you become aware of it, then you learn to stop doing it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I don't know if any of that resonated with you or not, but that's how I see the power centers, is very much our battery. And so I see you in your upper battery a lot. Very much so. Like, you've learned how to get through the eye of the needle to be in some of the more complex emotions.
I like that idea of the eye of the needle. Yes, I think my battery is fairly consistently charged, and I work at it. It's a daily process of being aware of where I'm at and choosing, right? So I think that's the most important part about that, is that when you're in that practice, if you're interested in that practice, I think that it only gets better with practice, like a lot of things. But I like to tell people that, because sometimes they don't feel like there's hope there, just always feels like they're dragged down no matter what, and they don't have control over that. You know, but I think that you do get better with that practice, and that you charge your battery more and more. It's a very, it stays that way a lot of the time. You know, when you really do the work of that practice.
Yes, it really does. And you're right, it takes work. And I think that that's why it's hard for a lot of people to get there, because it does take work and effort and focus, time, focus on yourself. And it takes the ability to go inside your mind and be quiet with yourself. And the more we entertain ourselves, the more we have, you know, like the music in our ears, or, you know, Netflix or YouTube or whatever streaming, or the app on our phone, the more we are constantly entertaining our mind, the less time we have available to ourselves to go in and get quiet with ourselves and do the work that's necessary to get to some of these really battery filling emotions. And when you get there, I think I've heard you say, you know, like, I just feel like I'm going to explode. And there is that feeling like, you know, yes, it's just too much to keep inside anymore.
I think that some people also must think that people with a lot of energy and enthusiasm are, they're ignoring reality. And I'm kind of here to say that, I have really effed up days too. And I have stuff that I've had to work through, even though, you know, people do see and feel a large amount of energy and enthusiasm from me on a regular basis, because I worked at that. But also that is not saying that there aren't those times, right? In fact, I look at those as gifts, because every time that I have to work through like that, that's a challenge, a bigger challenge maybe than the last one. I feel like I get to practice at another level.
Yes.
I get to have master training. I get to really test this stuff that we're talking about today.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So I just want to remind people that it's not really about every day is a rainbow, because that certainly isn't the way things go. But I get to choose to feel a certain way, even on the bad days, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I call that gravitas, you know, where you decide, what are you going to put emotional weight into? And I spent way too many years in my life where all the emotional weight that, I put into things was determined by other people, so and just using the world right now as an example, rewind like 15 years ago, if 2020 were happening 15 years ago, like I would, and I did, I've had times through all of this where I've had my moments where I've been upset or in my survival brain around, like the pandemic or, like the protests and the riots and, the looters and who's doing what and all of that. And, I've had my moments. And then once I pull myself out of that again, I'm like, dang, I can't believe I let myself sink back down into that rabbit hole again, because you start to realize that you have choice over what you put emotional weight into. And is it necessary to put your hands in the air and run in circles in a panic just because everybody else is doing it? Or can I sit here and keep my head about me and find a different approach or a different solution rather than the panic and the yelling and the anger and the screaming and the fear and the trying to baby shake people awake by saying, wake up, that doesn't work. Or
It doesn't work. It's one of the reasons why I haven't had cable in my home for several years now.
Yeah.
There was a point where, I didn't turn it on anyway, even when we did have that in the house. Mm-hmm. But there was a day where I decided to literally get rid of it, so the temptation wouldn't be there to flick that on and have all of that in my face,
Yep.
I love having the freedom of not having to watch all of that and be pulled into the black hole.
Right. Well, and I don't have cable either. This is me ending up in the rabbit hole of Facebook proper, when my intention is to go on Facebook and go into a group or, check out groups that I'm involved with related to work. And then I end up in the rabbit hole of the Facebook proper, and that's where I see it. And I'm like you, I gave up cable several years ago. I have a television and I'm like, I should take that thing off the wall, patch the holes, hang a pretty picture, and just sell that thing. I was thinking about that last night because I don't think I've turned my TV on in over a year. My son has, but familiar. I haven't. But I haven't.
Sounds familiar.
And it's nice to know. And I think this is an important topic too, because essentially what we're talking about is a choice. I feel like you and I both at one point in our lives got to the point where we realized how manipulative the news media is, advertising, commercials, all of it, just how manipulative it is in getting inside our minds and dictating what we think and how we think.
Very often not a good feel.
Yeah.
And so there's already enough in life, that might do that to you versus what you choose to consume in terms of entertainment. Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is too often I'm not feeling good when this is on, and I rather feel good. Sometimes it really is that simple.
Right. Right. So it seems to me that there aren't, that I'm going to say a minority of people. I wouldn't say it's more than 50%. I think it's less than 50% of people are able to stay up in some of these higher power centers or within our battery on a regular basis. So how do you stay there? Like what's some of your secret to staying there rather than having that roller coaster where you sink up and down and, like you're bumped out of I call it the okay zone. You can get bumped high out of your okay zone or bumped low. How do you stay in that?
I think the hardest part of my life was realizing that I was living with people who wouldn't ever let me be there on a consistent basis if I continued being in that environment. Mm-hmm. And so making some hard choices about who you hang around with. And so, of course, right now we're all we're all locked down at home, and so it could be really bad or really good depending on who you had to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But these were choices I made, a few years ago to really spend my time with people who would help me in that mission of feeling good and enjoying life and doing great things in the world and keeping our energies high and really focusing on things like laughter and love and gratitude and generosity, I wanted that posse. And I still do. And I think that's one of the ways is I just make sure that the people I hang out with are those kinds of people, both in person and in social media and the groups that, I run, et cetera, et cetera. When you asked me that question, I thought, oh, well, I walk in nature and I journal and I listen to music and I do all the things. I do them daily. So I could have given you that list, but the thing about who you're hanging around with, that came up as more important than that other tool list that I use, because for maybe obvious reasons,
Yeah. And that's such an important point. I think it was Jim Rohn who said you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So if you look at the personality traits, their characteristics, their qualities, their behaviors, their integrity, all of those qualities that you look at in people, or that we can identify, if you can identify that in the 5 people closest to you and then average it and realize that you are the average of that, that's always an interesting exercise to see where that lands.
Oh my gosh, it's just really interesting. Think about the last 4 months with people who've been locked down alone. And if you sort of redid that quote or you redid that thought for a minute in the last 4 months alone, if you are the one you've had to hang alone with, like for this, right? And so you think about, just brings up topics like self-love and enthusiasm, and really what kind of person are you? So now you're stuck with yourself. You can't go out and make your team right now because we can't be in person, so I think that's really, really important. It's been such an incredible journey for people to discover themselves over the last 4 months.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, and I'm hearing the whole range of, oh my God, I can't take this anymore, to, can we just like quarantine forever?
I know, I've heard those both too.
Yeah. And I'm one of those people who quarantine didn't really change my day-to-day life all that much. I mean, it did, but it didn't. It's been hard not going to my fitness classes that I went to, but other than that, nothing's changed. So I'm one of those weirdos who's enjoying this time and really experiencing a lot of personal growth as a result.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a mixture of both things, because the day-to-day didn't change a whole lot. The physical therapy practice was shut down, and I pivoted and transitioned over these last 4 months, decided not to reopen that part of my life again, which has been a big decision. But the things I miss the most, oh man, I've had so many gifts, the time with my daughter. So I'm lucky I am not alone. I live with a couple of different people who are super awesome, including my daughter. And she only has 1 more year here. Well, maybe, I don't know, who knows now if she'll go to college. Like that's a whole nother, like I have no idea, like, are they going to actually get out of the house at this point? I don't know.
Right. And what do you do if college goes to online and they still charge full tuition?
I hear you. We're going through all of those things right now. The older one is supposed to continue into his junior year coming up, and we're not really sure. Not sure yet.
Exactly.
But the gift with her was just spending time, dinner time, to have dinner time, kind of coming back, cooking together, spending time, just taking our time with the meal and talking while we did it. And just, that's been a huge gift. But I do miss my poetry venues, the in-person poetry venues. And I miss the music festival stuff. Like I can get myself in a big crowd of people and have a really, really good time. And so of course we have no idea when we're going to be able to do that again. Right.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. And that's fantastic to take these moments where you really have those moments of gratitude and appreciation just for whatever you're doing in the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been doing some questioning. I tend to do a lot of contemplation. I get lost in thought sometimes. I could be the thinker statue. I could totally be that dude. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot since we've been in quarantine is, how did we get to this point in life? And I don't think this is just me, where we excuse really big displays of bad behavior. Like, we're just so apathetic and we let it go. And I've been asking myself, how did we get here? Because some of the stuff that happens, that just as a collective in America, that we just kind of don't pay attention to, they're really egregious things.
Mm.
And it's the small stuff that we let go. And so I feel like it circles back to enthusiasm, or it can, like, an example of what it could circle back to would be enthusiasm, because I think of all the times in my life where there have been these tiny little moments where I've let things go, let things like my enthusiasm get, knocked out of the picture because it offended somebody else, or other things where maybe not enthusiasm, where there's a situation that goes against my morals and I don't speak up and I don't say anything. Or situations, I think I told you the situation I'm in right now with my house, where I'm currently dealing with a water leak that was a subcontractor error from 4 years ago, when my whole house was remodeled, had a forensic engineer who does forensic investigations for insurance companies come in and look at this. And it's one of those things where the insurance companies are going to court over this, or gearing up to go to court, like telling me what I need to keep for evidence and all of that. So it's going to be in the insurance company's hands. But I've been thinking, if this were in my hands, what would I do? Would I go to court? Would I put the money out for a lawyer? How would I handle this? And how many times do we take these situations where we're like, yeah, I can't fight this company, I can't do anything about this, so we let these little things just slide. And it's really not that little. Like, I have a room gutted because of it. And at the same time, in the big picture, it's little. And how can a little person like me fight a big corporation without an insurance company on my side? So I feel like we excuse it because we get backed into these corners where we tell ourselves, I can't do it, I can't do it. And then it just gets bigger and it snowballs and it snowballs, and then it becomes part of the collective. Everybody's doing it. And then, like, what does it matter? Do you see that? I don't know, like, I've been pondering this a lot, and
I'm in the middle of it. I actually in a topic that I'm not able to legally talk about, unfortunately, with you today. But here's what I want to say about it. We are, I am teaching my children in these moments. And so, like, that's all I ever have to think about with the topic you're talking about, to know what I will do. And that will be not be silent. That's so if people can grab onto a reason to motivate themselves toward what they know is right for them. And for me, that's the thing for me. All I ever have to think about is, what kind of model are you being for that amazing young woman you have in front of you, who's growing up in a world and learning things and learning about herself and how she wants to be in the world. So yeah, that's it for me. I know the answer is to not give up, even if you feel like the tiniest voice in the moment, because there's a whole load of other people coming behind you that need you to trailblaze that. Right. Yes. And so my daughter, of course, would be a very, very powerful force in my life to make me move in that direction. It's really, really hard. There's only so much energy to give to all of the things that we have to deal with. And there's a lot of stress and anxiety right now. And sometimes you're at the limit and you have to choose. So I really try hard not to judge other people right now about the choices they're making, about what you're saying, about not being silent and fighting the fight and doing all the things that, listen, until you really understand what people are going through, it's best to just relax and breathe, and not judge a whole lot, and do what you can in your own life. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There's definitely an element of, this is what I'm doing and you need to do the same thing. And if you're not doing the same thing that I'm doing in this situation, then you're wrong and I'm right. And I'm going to shame you online because of it.
Lordy. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the mental health of America.
It is, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does. And you keep mentioning awareness and you work at it. And so I hope the listeners are listening to the words Laura's saying, because she works at it and I work at it, and it takes work. It takes personal work. It takes awareness to rise above these things. Otherwise you get sucked into it.
Right.
And we can get addicted to the very things that we don't want in our life. We can get addicted to those things. And addiction doesn't have to do with substances all the time. I mean, that's what we're most familiar with, is substance addiction. But there's addiction to gossiping and complaining. And there's a addiction to judgment, and there's addiction to anger. People who only show the emotion of anger and rage. And so these emotions tend to light up the same areas of the brain that substances do whenever we're participating in these emotions. And it takes work to pull yourself out of that cycle of, I feel like gossiping and complaining and judgment, those are really, really big ones that are just viral in our world. And it takes work to come out of it. I used to be in that place. I don't know about you, but it did. It took work, and it took years of work to get myself out of it.
It's that is such a habitual way to be. You talk about learning something early on, right, in school. And gossip, it was like, I mean, that's just what we did, and we formed our little cliques, and that's what you did. And so of course, with the practice of awareness, it helps me catch if I'm falling into that. I'll catch myself maybe talking about somebody, and if I'm awake enough, I'll just be like, oh, you know what? I shouldn't be talking about that person without them around, so let's flip our switch here and speak of something that will lift everybody up instead. And I mean, it's that kind of awareness. It's like, and it does get easier and better and faster in the moment, but I'm not going to tell you, I still don't catch myself in the habit. That's probably been a lifelong one. You're right. People do get addicted to, you're doing it unconsciously without even knowing you're doing it. So first step is to actually notice. And that's sometimes the hardest step, is to notice your habitual behavior. You're wanting to feel good. This is so complicated, right? The psychology of this. So again, I try to simplify it for myself. If I'm wanting to feel good here, so why am I trying to feel good that way? There's a lot of other ways to feel good. I noticed this, this is a little bit different topic than the gossip, but I was really feeling like I needed to move, literally. I needed to like change everything, move out of my house, find another place in the country, start all over. And this was months worth of feeling something. And I would battle up here and go, oh, is this your intuition telling you should move? Is this or is this just, and I came all the way around to, no, it's just me wanting to feel better. I do not need to move out of my house. I don't need to have it's like some people like try to have a baby to feel good about their life, right? And we know that some people get married to do that. Some people get divorced to do that. I mean, there's so many things we do.
I know.
And so when I just stood still in that feeling for, and allowed myself, just gave myself the permission to understand what that was, I started to make a different decision about, I love my house, you know, it needs, like yours, it needs a few repairs, and it needs a little bit of a pick me up. And, you know, I see your beautiful room behind you with your art and your stuff behind, and that's what I needed too. I needed to kind of spruce up my rooms and make it feel like a place I really wanted to be, to help me feel better. But same with the gossip. Like, I think you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're looking to feel better about yourself, and there's some ways to do that and some ways not to do that.
Yeah. And that what you were describing is like that classic urge to flee. That's the flee response showing up, you know, fight or flight.
Yeah.
That's your flight. Like, oh, I got to leave. I got to get out of here. I got to go somewhere. I totally resonate with that. And and it's so important to notice these things, you know, and I think it's important to notice to pay attention to what offends us and what triggers us. And it's so easy to look at somebody and say, you just offended me, and put it right back at them, and as if it's their fault that they weren't able to read your mind, and that they somehow said something that crossed a boundary that they probably didn't even know you had.
Totally.
Yeah. And so I like to I'm to the point in life where when I get offended or I get upset, I'll sit with that for a few moments, but it's like, it really quickly turns to curiosity. Like, oh, what's this about? What am I going to learn about myself today? Because anytime something out there offends us or triggers us, or we're upset or angry about it, or even anxious, it's a reflection back at us. So why am I angry at myself that I'm trying to project out to the world and blame on the world? So I'm to the point where that sends me in self-reflection every single time to do some digging to find out, what have I not healed within myself? And it always brings up new awarenesses. It always brings up these aha moments. Sometimes it brings up these, oh dear God, I've been talking about this and I couldn't even see until today that I've been doing this thing that I've been telling people not to do. And it's like, oh shit. And I think we all have those moments too, because we really do teach what we need to learn.
Definitely. Curiosity is
Mm-hmm.
magical awareness.
Yes.
That will flip something really, really fast if you can get yourself to create that new habit of just getting curious whenever you're triggered. Mm-hmm. Just be curious instead. Just stop, take a pause, take a breath. And my mom and my sister and I have a joke about that. The phrase is, that's interesting. And it's like our code, you know? So we've taught ourselves to just say, okay, that's interesting. And just get a little bit more curious about what it is.
Yeah. Yes. And language is really important. I believe that the questions we ask people can be really important. Like if you ask somebody a why question, well, like, why'd you do that, Laura? Versus what's that about? Can you tell me what that's about?
Right.
Like why'd you do that, Laura? Or what was that about? Why, you know, what happened there? The difference is the why is like an attack on your belief.
Yeah. That's a blaming thing.
Big time. Mm-hmm. And so even just learning to rephrase basic questions, and that phrase that I think we've all said a gazillion million times in our life, probably a gazillion million times just in the last 4 months, is, oh my God, I can't believe, like, why would somebody do that? I can't even get my head around why somebody would do something like that. Mm-hmm. I think we've all said that so many times this year. And I have to stop myself when I say that, because that line of thinking will send me into internal suffering in my own mind, because I can't figure out why somebody does what they're doing. And there's this belief that if you're not doing what I would do, or maybe I don't know what I would do, but I like to pretend I know what I would do in that situation. So I'm going to tell myself this story that I know what I would do. So if you don't do what aligns with the story I tell myself, then I'm just going to go into this suffering and anger and resentment. And I
think it was in Brene Brown's latest TED talk, I loved, there's one piece of what she said, and it's what you're talking about. And it had to do with, relating to somebody, having a conversation in a relationship. And she was just saying that she sort of shuts down the tension or the stress by saying to the person, the story I'm telling myself about that right now is, and you're just sort of calling yourself out to the other person. I'm making this mean this right now. Is that really what you mean? And then you can have a conversation, because people can't be in your head all the time, right? I mean, I do know some pretty cool psychic people, but your average family and friends are not in your head. They don't know what you believe and what you think. And unless you're out loud about it, they're going to make their guesses and you're going to make yours. And,
Yes. And I know the talk you're talking about, or the book, because I've heard her talk about this before. I follow her work as well. And what I've discovered, because I've tried that, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And what I have discovered is that you really need somebody who is somewhat healthy and and their approach and their life for that to work.
Yeah.
Because like there are people like in my family where I've tried that and I'm like, oh, oof.
No, that's really important. I mean, it has to be somebody that matters to you, that you're actually working on a relationship that's aware in two directions,
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's the situation I'm talking about
Absolutely.
In that
I learned
situation.
that the hard way. I thought, this will work. Nope.
We do learn the hard way, don't we?
Yes.
But when you have someone that loves you and cares about you and is practicing awareness, even a little bit with you, it can be quite amazing, because I think it's an authentic thing to say. It's like, wow, what I'm making that mean right now is this. I'm not really sure if that's, your reality. So it helps just to put it on the table.
Yeah.
But yeah, not with the wrong person.
Right. Exactly. Know your audience.
Exactly. It's good advice across life, isn't it?
Yes. Know your audience. Yep. So Laura, what are you really enthusiastic about? Like what do you have cooking that you're able to share?
Oh, wow. Okay. So thanks for asking, because the book series that's out right now is just fired me up so much. This was a thing where I woke up from a dream on March 20th. So I had been I'd been in about a week of panic about my business shutting down. I woke up in this dream of doing this book project. And it was the passion, the idea to put together all of my healer friends and help the world heal at home. So the ultimate guide to self-healing is now a book series, because we've launched the second one and we're working on the third. And the thing I'm most enthusiastic about is the energy with which this has grown, because of all of the expert healers who are walking that walk. And, when you put those kinds of energies together in many different kinds of voices, you help many different kinds of people, which was part of that mission, right? So thank you for asking. That's been an incredible project that's happened of late.
Yeah. How many books total, or do you know yet?
Oh, well, in the vision, I have to cover all the chakra colors on the front covers. And so we all have a few more volumes.
Okay.
So
are you starting at the root going up, or?
No, I started at the heart. Okay.
Got
it. Green, blue, we did purple. So we went higher on the next one. So I'm definitely getting down to the reds and the yellows, maybe the oranges next. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. I knew about the first one. I missed the second two.
Oh, thank you. The second one launched just, oh my gosh, what date is it? The 15th, last week.
Okay.
And volume 3 will be launching in October. So I'm not sure when you'll air this show, but then we've got 4 set for 2021 coming up in early 2021. So.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. I think,
Thank you.
That's definitely something to be excited about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been exciting.
And so the stories in it, are they, it's all stuff that people can do at home without going anywhere?
Yeah, I mean,
Love that.
realizing that we were locked down and understanding that people had just lost all of their hands-on healers all of a sudden.
Yeah.
All of the people that they were going out to and relying on for their healing. And the thing is here is, authentic healers empower their clients to heal themselves, really.
Right.
So this whole crisis has forced us to step up as master teachers, as people who would then go back and say, hey, there are so many ways you can do things at home. Let me teach you how, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you're used to somebody coming to your place and laying on your table and doing your work, and that's the interaction, we're teaching people they need us to be able to go that next step. Well, I love that piece. And you and I both know how powerful it is to get hands-on work.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
it's really important to empower people, right? So the books, they've got 25 expert healer authors, and they're all telling their authentic story about becoming a healer, and then they're actually teaching a tool in the book.
Okay.
So
I
25
love that.
tools.
Yeah, I love that. So it sounds really simple. So I'll make sure I put links up
Oh, great. Thank
in
you.
the show notes, because if any listeners, want to do some self-healing and self-help, I don't get the feeling that we're going to be done with COVID anytime soon.
Right.
So I feel like we're going to be in and out, or maybe just continually in.
And even if we're out, this is what needs to happen in terms of helping people feel empowered.
Yeah.
And moving towards things that help them feel enthusiastic and joyful and, all of those things. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Yep. So, what's next after that? Or are you just going to focus on that for this year and next year? I have a hard time believing you're going to focus on like a single thing, Laura. That's why I'm asking.
I always warn people, if you're going to ask me this question, you have to be ready for the answers. You know me, right? I'm always working on like 10 different things.
I know. Like, there's no way you're just doing the one thing, is there?
No. Yeah, I have a big solo book that will be published in January. And the biggest news is Brave Healer Productions publishing services. And so really this is the ripple for me at this point. I want to help fellow practitioners get their messages out into the world in a bigger way. And if I'm helping more of them, they're helping more people. And that ripple is very real. So, but I have a solo book coming in 21, How to Have Fun with Your Fear and Change the World. That's the title of that one. And I'm going to be starting a new show myself, a new video podcast on Well World TV. And so I will be interviewing all of my expert healers that have been part of the book project, and not. And that's coming up too. And Jennifer, I have so many things.
I love that.
I'm running in that energy all the time. It's been very good.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, I think that's fantastic. Are you allowed to talk a little more about your show?
Yeah,
like
sure.
what's it going to be about? What's the name of it?
I'm working on the series title. So it's going to be holistic healthcare secrets from the experts.
Okay.
And basically it's got a very, very similar mission to the book project. So it's kind of simple like that. Okay. Stories heal. So the healers who have chosen this path of healthcare and coaching and healing and, all of the wonderful things that they're doing, I really think that they're a unique group of people. They chose the path. They chose to trailblaze this. They chose to do the work and then help more people do their work, right? And so the stories themselves, and so that show will be about sharing their story, but it'll also be about teaching people the tools, just like the book. And mostly the foundational topic of awareness. There can be 100 different people, 1,000 different people that talk about awareness, and we would have 1,000 different tools because there are that many ways to go about it, right? And I mean, just to you, the authors or the writers or the healers, the speakers, your voice matters. Even if this thing has been talked about 1,000 different times, it's not been talked about by you. So that's, that's behind the books and the show, is like the more voices, the better about this topic. Seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've noticed that in life too. So many times I've been in conversations with people and it almost ends up argumentative, where they'll say something and I'll say something and there'll be this back and forth. And it happened with my son just last week. I'm like, wait a minute, pause for just a second. Do you realize you're saying the exact same thing I'm saying? You're just saying it with different words and a different message, but you're arguing with me about it.
Right.
I'm like, why are we arguing over an agreement? Like, we argue that we agree.
That's where my, that's interesting.
Yes.
Comes in.
And so and I think, I've come to realize over the last couple of years how common this is, where we're arguing not over the heart of the issue, but we're arguing over the semantics on how we deliver the issue.
Right.
So as if there's a right way to deliver a message.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that the audience is really, really listening to this, that, there are, for as many people as there are that many different ways and that many different approaches, to healing and wholeness and health and, wisdom and happiness and all the things.
All the things. And, a lot of the fellow entrepreneurs that I hang out with, they're stuck in not good enough, and they're not expressing because it hasn't gotten to that place of perfection in their mind yet. It's just not good enough, whatever. But, not good enough in terms of, if you're here to do this kind of work, is kind of boring to me at this point. We got to get out of our own way. We have to make it it's not about us anymore. It's about the person who needs to hear it, like you say it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I've done in my life and my business. I've done that pivot over and over to help me through that sort of, I call it purpose-driven fear.
Mm-hmm.
That not good enough fear, the who am I to fear. And so we do have to keep reminding ourselves that our unique way of expressing it is really important.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And, and I will say that I don't 100% agree with your sentiment that I'm bored with the not good enough. And the only reason I say that is in my own life, like, there's so many ways to get past that. And I've been able to, well, like I said, focus on developmental and intergenerational trauma. So I see the roots of where that started, and the roots of that for me personally, I can't speak for other people, started early in life, pre-verbal, and it was part of my normal. And so it's not always easy to address those traumas whenever that's always part of your life, that sense that you're not good enough. Whenever you start to understand this and understand how far the tendrils go back in your life. And each person overcomes that in their own time and in their own way. Yeah. And so I've butted up against that a lot in my life, because that's one of my biggest self-sabotaging belief systems that I've had to butt up against. Mm-hmm. And every time, and it's one of those things where I always tell myself, oh, it's going to get a little bit better. But every time I'm putting myself out there, I still get really, really nervous about it. Like, oh God, what's going to happen next? Or I have those thoughts about, are people going to like this? Are people going to accept it? What are people going to say about it? And then I'm like, okay, do I need to worry about that? And then it gets into that conflict. And
I think that when you're nervous about things like what you're talking about, because mm-hmm. you like me are being out loud about these things.
Yes.
You are not hiding, and you want to share your voice. Mm-hmm. So in that realm, I think the nervousness is like, it's because this matters. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. So that's a compass for me too. When I get nervous about mm-hmm. something, or a little too worried about what other people are going to think about it, or, and I'm like, okay, this is it right here. Mm-hmm. This is it. This is because this matters to me.
Right.
And, so that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. And it's how we interpret it. It's whenever the mind steps in and starts to interpret it, because that
Right.
that feeling, the sensation and the felt sense of nervousness, or the experience of nervousness in the body, it's how we choose to interpret it that matters, because we can choose to interpret it as like nervous excitement, because, oh my gosh, I'm going to go do this thing, and it's unknown, and I'm all excited and I'm nervous all at the same time. Or we can choose to interpret that as anxiety and worry and stress and strain. And so there is a choice point in there. However, it takes work and it takes healing from your past traumas to get to that choice point, if you're not able to see that you even have a choice point.
Yeah.
Because you can get stuck in the hamster wheel of anxiety and not even realize that you're stuck in a negative feedback loop.
Yeah.
And
really
so
important.
There's some really important aspects of healing in there for people even to get to that choice point. And then once you get to the choice point, the hope is that people maintain that choice point and they don't jump back on the hamster wheel.
Right. Exactly. And I think we all fall back on it now and again, no matter where we're at on the journey.
Right.
So it's just about, it really is about the journey and the practice versus some perfect place that we hope to get to, where that never happens.
Right. Right. Yes. Enjoying the journey, enjoying the process. If you can get to that point where you enjoy the process, then I think you're in a good place in life.
Well, and getting back to our just whole thing about enthusiasm, especially over these last 4 months, if it had, I was having that, ooh, life is short, you got to enjoy yourself a little here feeling before all this happened. So as this all has been happening, right, it just feels more intensely like that to me. And that's why I continue to prioritize having more fun, talking about things like enthusiasm, laughing more, pointing my face toward the sun a little more often, right? Catching myself in the black hole when I'm stuck in there a little faster. Yes, this whole crisis that the world is in right now, that's part of what it's done for me, is just sort of enhance that whole, you know what? Let's have a little more fun.
Yeah, exactly. And we both know that spiritual bypassing, or bypassing our own healing, or hijacking our efforts to healing, is a real thing, where people can use positive affirmations to as an avoidance or bypassing tactic. So I'm curious what advice you have for that person.
This topic is interesting and it's loaded. And I think as somebody who has spent 30 years on a healing journey, having been accused of that by other people, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to surround myself with people who know who I am and know that wouldn't be me. And so like you could spend your time and energy battling that topic for hours and hours with somebody who is very confident in their opinion, if you know what I mean. But I think that when you have practiced a journey of authentic healing, whatever that means, because it means different things for different people, the awareness comes back up as the habit. So I love affirmations. I love positivity. I love enthusiasm. I love having fun. I love all of the things that I love. And I don't think I'm bypassing anything. I think that I have laid on a table and gone to my deepest sufferings plenty of times to be able to say to somebody, listen, you might have your opinion about this, but I've done the work. But you know what? At this point in my life, I don't have to explain myself to anybody.
Right. Right.
So I don't know about
Right.
that topic. It gets me riled up.
Yeah.
You can hear it in my voice.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and hearing what you said and hearing your answer, like, because I was just wondering, like what you might have to say for the person, who does participate, because there are people who spiritually hijack. They'll use affirmations as a way to avoid any stress or anything in their life, and life is not perfect. So
I think
I
it's the
heard you say,
judgment thing.
yeah, and
I think I'd have to go back and say, you know what? I don't know their life.
right. And I heard you say, I've done the work. You don't know what I've been through. I don't know what you've been through. So yeah, I think those are excellent points to pull out, because you have done
Yeah.
work in your life.
And it's
Yeah.
hard to judge that in people. It's hard without
Yeah.
really having a deep window into their life to make that judgment about people, especially since we seem to do it over the web.
Yes.
And we seem to do it in all of these ways. And I'm sorry, but I have to chuckle a little bit about that sometimes when I see it happening.
Yeah.
You don't know the person.
I know.
You have not
how
lived with
many
them.
of us, like, is there anybody out there who hasn't found themselves in one of those online conversations and in the middle of it going, oh dear God, what did I get myself into?
Exactly.
I have.
Me.
I have
Yes.
I am so guilty of, because I have this like almost naive delusion that if I just explain what my thought process was, that'll fix everything and they'll
Right.
understand. And oh dear God, was I wrong? Like, you can't. Yeah. And so I'm more in the place where you are. It's like, I don't need to explain. And in the last probably year or so, I have deleted more comments than I have actually posted. I'm like, I'll sit there typing it and I'll edit it. And instead of hitting enter, I'll highlight and delete.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Hey, it's, so sometimes maybe we're talking about Facebook here, or whatever social we're on, right?
Yes.
It's social media, you guys. Like, what are we doing? Like, yeah, this is my page, and no, you can't have your stuff on my page if I don't like it.
Right.
And I've been told that's because I have a platform that I have a responsibility to do certain things too. But I do have to chuckle about that all over again, because you're just giving me more rules because I have a reach of people that I'm expressing to. This is still about me being able to be my full-on passionate, enthusiastic self in whichever way I feel serves me, because when I do that, I do serve more people. Right? So it's selfish, but it's not. It's both things, right? And so,
yes, and
yes,
yes, it's the yes and.
it is. We've had a couple of good yes ands in this interview.
Yes, and and every time, like, I don't know where the name of the show came from or why it hit me, because there's so many reasons, but I'm like, every time I'm like, I'm so glad I named my show that.
It's a great awareness title. It's the and instead of the but is a great little awareness trick.
It is
language. Yeah, I love it.
Sure is. It sure is. Yep. And I love that, curiosity came up in the conversation, because curiosity is the antidote to judgment. And,
definitely.
As soon as we get curious, judgment goes out the window, and then we're like, oh, what's this about? Rather than,
that's why it's so powerful. Somebody else told me that gratitude is that to fear. You can't feel both of those at the same time. So if you can get yourself a little bit better at pivoting quicker to the other thing, like gratitude, we love gratitude, we love curiosity, then you're going to be instantly shifting.
Yes.
Right. Which I love. I love that challenge.
Yeah. And the antidote to anger and rage is play.
Yes.
And exactly. How much do we not emphasize and enjoy play?
Wow. Yeah.
And
That's come into my life more and more in these last just few years as well. I think it's
Mhm.
part of the enthusiasm,
Yes,
So
yes, yes,
play is good, people.
absolutely. It sure
Yeah.
is. Yep. And I want to circle back to you before we wrap up today. So Brave Healer Productions so you're producing books now?
Yes, ma'am, I
Mm.
am. Like I mentioned earlier, the Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing series is continuing,
Mm-hmm.
and in its third volume production right now. We're just in the process of writing that new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I have published a couple of my own. There's the new one that I talked about coming out in 21 through Brave Healer Productions, and
Mm-hmm.
also looking out to fellow healthcare practitioners and healers who are ready to,
Mm-hmm.
get their solo books into the world. So really stepped into the place inside of me that knows that this is what I was born for, is to do this and help people get their message out in a bigger way through the written word. These words, they're changing the world.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fantastic. So if anybody out there is interested in writing a book, here's a publisher.
Come on over. I have a super great giveaway on the website, you guys. Anybody who's even thinking about doing this book writing thing, there's a great 90-minute free mini course and a workbook. So I will catapult you in a very positive direction in terms of your book writing. So go grab it.
Oh, that is fantastic. So I will definitely put a link up there. Is that on your bravehealerproductions.com site?
Bravehealer.com. It is the first thing you'll see. So you don't have to go
Okay.
anywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah,
So bravehealer.com.
you got it. You got
Awesome.
it.
So Laura, is that the best place to find you if our listeners want to locate you, is bravehealer.com?
Yeah, perfect, you guys. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter too. You can come find me pretty much on all the social, but bravehealer.com would be great. I would love to hear from you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Laura, it's really been an honor to have you here today because I feel like this is an important topic. Um, I know we kind of segued out of enthusiasm, but we talked about so many different things that are so important and so overlooked when it comes to our own um, emotional and creative maturity in life.
Mm.
And our creative expression, or the maturity of our creative expression, might be a better way to put it.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
It is the journey, isn't it?
yeah. But until we can really start to own our own enthusiasm and own some of these higher power center emotions, it can be really, really challenging um, to get to get to a place where we even want to express ourselves creatively.
Mm-hmm. We're changing that.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm tackling the trauma that keeps us from it right now still. Yep. Well, Laura, do you have any final tips or bits of wisdom to leave with our listeners today?
Oh, I like to end this way, just reminding you, you were born, so you're worthy, and your message matters. And what if the thing you're still a little afraid to share is exactly what someone needs to hear to either change or even save their life? So it's time to be brave about sharing your words.
I love that. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
And for all of our listeners out there, this is Jennifer Whitacre signing off. Please listen, please subscribe, please share. In my humble opinion, I really believe that this is such an important topic. And I believe that this is an important topic for people just to take a few minutes of contemplation. And contemplation is nothing more than slowing down your thinking just a little bit so you can spend a little more time on a topic and get to the roots of it within yourself. So if you notice that you're hiding your enthusiasm, or you're holding yourself back, or maybe you're judgmental, how can you turn that into curiosity? How can you express your enthusiasm? How can you turn it around whenever you find out that you're offended or triggered about something, or even when somebody tells you that you've said something that offended or triggered them? How can you maintain a healthy conversation? These are real problems that I believe we're all butting up against in our day-to-day lives. So if you found value in the conversation today, please share this with others. And please look Laura up. She's got some fantastic things coming, and I know she does great work. She's great at helping people get their books launched and out into the world. So please look her up at bravehealer.com. And I will see all of you next week on Yes And.
We have just concluded another episode of the Yes And podcast with Jennifer Whitacre. For additional resources, please visit our website, jenniferwhitacre.com. Leave a review if you enjoyed the show and find it useful. Until next time, continue challenging conventional thinking and keep moving forward.